Before I begin this story, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever wondered how vulnerable we truly are the moment we close the door to a hotel room? We walk in, drop our bags on the bed, exhale, and feel that long-awaited relief. The soft glow of the lamps, freshly tucked sheets, perfect order, and a large mirror on the wall. In that moment, we feel completely safe. We believe these four walls are our temporary fortress. I used to think so too. But what I discovered behind the glass of my mirror just 2 days later changed my perspective on hotels, rentals, and privacy forever. If you travel often, work in tourism, or simply love exploring new places, watch this video to the end. Perhaps what you hear today will one day help you protect yourself and your family. My name is Elena. 6 months ago, I realized I desperately needed a break. I'm 45, my children have long since grown and moved out, and it had been an exceptionally difficult week at work. My home, which used to be full of noise and laughter, now felt far too quiet. You know that feeling when the silence starts to ring in your ears? I found a charming guest house online, right on the coast. An old white stone building with wooden shutters, draped in ivy, and terraces overlooking the endless sea. The reviews unanimously promised perfect privacy and peace. It was exactly the medicine my soul needed. When I arrived, reality exceeded all expectations. The air smelled of salt and pine. The receptionist, a polite young man with a flawless smile, handed me the key. Room 305. After climbing to the third floor via a creaky wooden staircase, I opened the door and froze. The room was flooded with sunlight. Everything was decorated in warm beige tones, and directly opposite the massive king-sized bed hung a heavy, antique oak-framed mirror. I remember thinking, how beautiful! It makes the room look twice as large. The first night was wonderful. I fell asleep to the sound of the surf, feeling completely protected. But on the second evening, something changed. You know that strange feeling when you feel like you're being watched? Rationally, I knew I was alone in a locked room on the third floor, but a chill ran down my spine. As the sun began to set, its low, almost orange rays hit the glass of the mirror directly. I went over to close the curtains and suddenly noticed a tiny anomaly. In the very corner near the frame there was a small dark speck. At first I thought it was just dirt or a maid's fingerprint. I took a tissue and tried to rub it off, but the spot wouldn't budge. It wasn't on the outside, it was inside the glass itself. A tiny, perfectly round, no bigger than a pinhead. I dismissed it as a defect in the silvering of the antique mirror. But intuition is a stubborn thing. I began to look closer at the frame. For some reason, it didn't sit as flush against the wall as it should have. There was a gap at the top, nearly a centimeter wide. Elena, you've just watched too many detective shows, I said aloud, trying to push back the anxiety. I lay in bed and turned off the light, but sleep wouldn't come. I stared at the dark rectangle of the mirror, and it felt as though it was staring back at me. T3 in the morning. I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, grabbed my phone, and turned on the flashlight. Walking right up to the mirror, I remembered a test I had once read about in a safety article. I placed the tip of my index finger against the glass. Remember this. If there is a small gap between your finger and its reflection, it's a normal mirror, where the silver layer is behind the glass. But if the reflection touches your finger directly, without the slightest gap, you are looking at a spy two-way mirror. My finger touched the reflection. There was no gap. In that moment, my heart dropped into the pit of my stomach. An icy sweat broke out across my back. I began to frantically examine the sides of the frame, and at the very bottom, behind the carved wood patterns, I felt a tiny metal lever. With great effort and a creak that sounded like thunder in the midnight silence, I slid it to the right. And the mirror? It slowly gave way, swinging forward like a heavy secret door. There was no brick wall behind it. Instead, there was a narrow technical niche built into the structure of the building. Inside, on a specially mounted bracket, stood a modern digital camera. Its lens was aimed exactly at the pinhead on the mirror. A small blue indicator on the body was blinking rhythmically, confirming that the recording was active right then and there. Next to it was a power bank and wires disappearing deep into the wall. That I stood there in my nightgown before that open void, shaking. It felt as though my skin had been stripped off. Someone had been watching me while I slept. Someone had seen my most private moments. My first instinct was to grab my bag and run into the hallway, but I stopped myself just in time. I realized, If I leave now, they will just dismantle everything, and I'll never be able to prove a thing. With trembling hands, I recorded everything on my phone. The cameras in the niche, the way the mirror opened, and the room number. Only after that did I call the police. The officers arrived 15 minutes later. What they discovered during the search shocked even the most seasoned forensic experts. My room wasn't the only one. Similar systems were hidden in 4 other rooms of this guest house. The cameras had been professionally installed during a major renovation 6 months prior. Suspicion fell on a technical contractor who had access to all the building's blueprints and walls. When the police raided his apartment a week later, they found several hard drives packed to the brim with video files. He had been watching hundreds of people. Women, couples, children. They all became unwilling participants in his sick show. He was arrested and I had to testify in court. It was difficult, but I knew I had to do it. The detective who led the case told me afterward, "Elena, if it weren't for your attention to that tiny dot and that finger test, we might never have caught him. He could have been doing this for years." Since then, my hotel ritual has changed forever. I no longer jump onto the bed with joy. The first thing I do is walk up to the mirror. I check the gaps, I shine my flashlight into the corners, I press my finger against the glass. In most cases, everything is perfectly fine. But every time I see a massive frame, I remember room 305. Please be vigilant. Your privacy is not paranoia. It is your right. Trust your intuition. If it feels like you are being watched, you probably are. If this story made you think, share it with your friends. It might save someone from a nightmare like this. Subscribe to the channel. Here we talk about the things others prefer to keep silent. Stay safe.